Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're your shortcut to staying informed on some pretty cutting-edge research.
That's right.
Today, we're diving into a paper that tackles a really big and honestly expensive challenge for large language models.
The context window problem.
Exactly. How do you give these models super long contexts without, completely maxing out your compute resources?
Yeah, it's a huge bottleneck.
So we're looking at this approach called cartridges and a training method they call self-study. Pretty intriguing names.
Definitely.
Our mission today is basically to unpack the tech behind it, figure out what it means, and, well, see where it might take AI efficiency. You get a solid grasp on what's going on here.
It's a really significant piece of work, I think, moving towards making these huge models more practical, especially when they need to understand like really large texts. We'll focus on the tech side, the cleverness of it, and those performance numbers.
Sounds good. And as always, if you want more deep dives like this, check out our webpage, the link's in the bio. Okay, let's get started. So let's set the stage. LLMs are amazing at this in-context learning, or ICL. You give them a little book or code base or whatever.
Right, mountains of text, legal docs, chat logs.
Yeah, exactly. And they can answer questions about it. Super powerful. But, and here's the kicker, serving that is incredibly expensive.
It really is. And the core culprit here is something called the KV cache.
Ah, the KV cache. Explain that a bit.
Sure. So it's basically memory the model uses during inference. And the problem is it grows linearly with the input length.
Linearly, so double the text.
Double the memory needed, roughly. And the paper gives this pretty startling example. A LLM 70B model needs a massive 84 gigabytes of memory just to answer one question over 128,000 token context.
84 gigs for one query. That's wild. And what about speed?
Oh, speed takes a huge hit too. They mentioned Llama 8B's throughput. That's tokens per second. It drops by like 77 times.
77 times slower, going from 1,000 tokens to 120,000.
Yeah, so you can see how that really limits how many people can use the model at once or how complex the tasks can be.
Definitely. So given that just making the window bigger is so inefficient, what have people tried before this?
Well, there have been a few angles. Prompt compression is one trying to summarize or filter the input text before it hits the model.
Makes sense. Shrink the input.
And then there's KV cache compression itself, trying to directly shrink those stored key value pairs during inference.
Okay. But how well do those work?
Well, it's the rub, isn't it? They often involve a pretty serious trade-off between memory savings and, well, the quality of the output. Performance can drop off fast, especially if you try to compress by more than, say, 2x. It's like trying to stuff way too much into a small bag. You lose things or can't find them easily.
Yeah, I know that feeling. Stuff gets crumpled, lost at the bottom. Okay, so if compression has these limitations, what's the different idea with cartridges?
So the researchers here from the paper CARTRIDGES, lightweight and general purpose long context representations via self-study, they propose something complementary. And it's quite clever, I think. Instead of compressing a live KV cache during inference, they say, let's train a smaller, dedicated KV cache offline for each specific text corpus you care about.
A dedicated cache, trained offline.
Exactly. And they call this pre-trained cache a cartridge.
Hence the name. Okay, so how does that help?
The idea is if you have users hitting the same big documents over and over, think SEC filings, or a company's entire code base, maybe patient records.
Right, static or semi-static stuff.
Yeah. The upfront costs to train that cartridge get spread out over all those queries. Then at inference time, you just load the cartridge, add the user's short query, and the LLM runs. It slots right into existing server setups.
Interesting. So it's like pre-digesting the knowledge for a specific topic.
That's a good way to put it. Like a specialized knowledge module the LLM can just plug in and use. But there are two big technical hurdles they need to clear for this to actually work well.
Okay, what are they?
First, generality. These cartridges have to be flexible, just like regular ICO. They need to handle all sorts of questions, Q&A, summaries, even creative stuff, not just spit back memorized text.
Right, it needs to understand, not just parrot.
Exactly. And second, structural awareness. They need to grasp how different parts of the document relate, even if they're far apart. This is where those older lossy compression methods often fell down.
Okay, those make sense. So what if you just trained a cartridge the simple way, like just predicting the next token in the document?
That's the natural baseline, right? And interestingly, that approach is super efficient at memorizing. They found it uses 107 times less memory than the full KV cache. Perfect recall.
Wow, 107x. But there's a catch.
Big catch. While it memorizes perfectly, those cartridges are not general at all.
Ah,
They actually hurt the LLM's ability to answer diverse questions. It can only regurgitate. So pure memorization isn't enough. You need flexible application. And that's the core challenge this self-study method tackles.
got it. Memorization is easy, generalization is hard. So tell us about self-study. How does it build these general cartridges?
It's a neat two-step process they came up with, pretty automated.
Okay, step one.
Step one is synthetic data generation. This is key. Instead of just feeding the model the raw text, they make it generate synthetic conversations about the text.
Conversations.
Yeah.
Like question-answer pairs.
Exactly. They essentially prompt the model to quiz itself on the material. So it's not just passively reading, it's actively engaging, formulating questions, finding answers. It forces a deeper level of processing.
Quizzing itself. So that Q&A format is what pushes it beyond rote memorization. How does that work mechanistically, do you think?
Well, predicting the next token is very local. This Q&A forces it to connect potentially distant parts of the text to form an answer, summarize sections, identify key themes. It's a much richer signal for learning relationships.
Okay, that makes sense. What about really huge documents, though? Bigger than the model's normal context window?
Good question. They use chunking for massive texts. Like they mention a 484,000 token textbook.
Whoa.
They break it into smaller chunks, maybe a few thousand tokens each. Self-study runs on these chunks, allowing it to process documents far larger than the base model could handle.
Clever. And are the questions just generic, or are they tailored?
They're tailored. They use a set of seed prompts to guide the synthetic conversations. These prompts nudge the model towards specific skills like structuring information, summarizing, asking factual questions, exploring use cases, even generating creative responses based on the text.
So diversifying the quiz questions leads to a more versatile cartridge. Does the data show that helps?
Absolutely. The results are pretty clear. On the long health benchmark, that's for medical docs, diverse prompts boosted accuracy by nearly 5 points. On MTOB, the textbook benchmark, it gave almost an 8-point jump in CHRF score.
A CHRF score.
Yeah.
That measures text quality, right?
Yeah, character enneagram overlap. Basically how well the generated text matches a reference. So higher is better. It really shows the quality of the synthetic data matters a lot.
Okay, so that's step one. Generate rich, diverse synthetic conversations via self-quizzing. What's step two?
Step two is context distillation. They take those synthetic conversations and use them to train the cartridge. But how they train it is important.
Not just next token prediction on the conversations.
No, they use a context distillation objective. This means they train the cartridge model to match the output distributions of the original larger model when it has the full corpus in its context.
Ah, so it's learning to mimic the big model's understanding, like a student learning from a teacher.
Exactly. It's teaching the small cartridge setup to behave as if it had the full context, capturing the nuances of the teacher model's predictions, not just the surface text.
And does this step also make a big difference compared to simpler training?
Huge difference. The paper shows distillation significantly improves quality over just predicting the next token in the synthetic data. On MTOB, another 8.6 CHRF points. On long health, almost 4 points higher accuracy.
So both the synthetic data and the distillation objective are critical for getting that generalization.
It seems so. It really makes you think about what's happening, or rather not happening, with simple next token prediction. It's like it learns the patterns, but not the deeper connections or reasoning the way distillation forces it to.
Fascinating. Okay, let's dive a bit deeper into the mechanics.
Yeah.
How are these cartridges actually implemented? What's the underlying technique?
They use a simplified version of prefix tuning.
Prefix tuning, right?
So they add a small set of trainable key and value vectors, the cartridge itself, usually at the beginning of the input. Crucially, they only train these new vectors. The original LLM weights are kept frozen.
Parameter-efficient tuning, then. Did they compare prefix tuning to other methods like LoRa? LoRa's pretty popular.
They did, and the results were quite striking. Prefix tuning came out way ahead, especially on tasks outside the domain of the training corpus.
Really? How so?
Well, they tested on MMLU, that's a general knowledge benchmark. With LoRa, as the cartridge size increased, the general knowledge accuracy actually dropped significantly from about 55% down to 45%.
Ouch. So LoRa made it forget its general knowledge.
It seems like it interfered more, but with prefix tuning, The accuracy barely dipped, maybe 0.5%. It stayed robust.
That's a really important finding. Suggests prefix tuning is better at isolating the new knowledge without disrupting the old. What about how you start the training? Initialization.
Also critical, they found that initializing the cartridge's trainable vectors not randomly, but with the actual key and value vectors from the first few tokens of the corpus itself.
Using the start of the document to seed the cartridge.
Exactly. That alone gave them an extra 4 percentage points in accuracy compared to random initialization. It helps anchor the cartridge to the specific content right from the start.
Interesting. Any other subtle tricks?
One more they mention, freezing the very first token's key and value vectors, sometimes called the attention sink during training. Apparently, this improves stability.
The attention sink. Why
Yeah.
would freezing that help?
It likely provides a stable reference point for the attention mechanism, especially over long sequences. Prevents things from drifting too much as the model processes the context. It's one of those empirical findings that highlight how sensitive these big models can be to design choices.
Yeah, finding those little sweet spots seems key. It makes you wonder how much of training is still uncovering these architectural nuances.
A lot, probably. There's still quite a bit of art alongside the science.
Okay, so putting it all together, the prefix tuning, the self-study training with synthetic data and distillation, does it actually deliver? What's the bottom line on performance and efficiency?
The bottom line is, yes, it delivers. Big time. When trained with self-study, these cartridges consistently match and sometimes even beat standard in-context learning on quality benchmarks.
Same or better quality. But what about the efficiency? That was the whole point.
Right, and that's where it really shines. On average, across their tests, cartridges use 38.6 times less memory.
38 times, that's huge.
It is, and that memory saving directly leads to much higher throughput. They measured 26.4 times higher peak throughput when serving lots of users with different cartridges.
Wow. Orders of magnitude improvement over even the best cache compression methods. That really is a potential game changer for serving costs and scalability.
Absolutely. It makes certain applications feasible that just weren't before because of the memory or speed constraints.
You mentioned the trade-off, though, the upfront training cost. Is that a major barrier?
It's a factor, for sure. The paper notes it takes about 30 minutes on a serious GPU cluster, an 8x H100 node, to train a cartridge for Llama 8B.
30 minutes. Okay, so not instant.
Not instant. So if your data changes every 5 minutes, this isn't the solution. But if you have stable documents that people query often, that 30 minutes is easily paid back by the massive savings during inference. It's an offline compute cost for online efficiency gains.
Makes sense. A calculated trade-off. What else can cartridges do? You mentioned something about going beyond the original context limit.
Yeah, context length extrapolation. Because self-study can use chunking, they trained cartridges on documents much larger than the base model's window. They got Llama 8B with its 128K limit to effectively process that huge 484,000 token textbook.
That's really impressive. And you also mentioned composition. You can stick different cartridges together.
Yes. This was quite surprising even to the researchers, I think. You can train one cartridge on, say, an AMD financial report and another on a Pepsi report, then just concatenate them at inference time.
Just stick them end to end.
Yep. And the model can answer questions that require pulling info from both documents without any extra training to make them work together.
How does that even work if they're trained totally separately?
It suggests the prefix tuning approach really does create these self-contained knowledge modules. The LLM's attention mechanism seems able to just address the relevant cartridge based on the query. It's accessing distinct preloaded knowledge stores. Very modular.
That modularity is powerful. Okay, so we have huge efficiency gains, context extrapolation, composition. What are the limitations or the next steps here? You mentioned the training time.
Right. The training time is one limitation. It's not free. And the paper primarily focuses on static documents. The big open question is how to handle dynamic updates efficiently.
Yeah, like if you have a code-based cartridge, but the code is constantly changing.
Exactly. How do you update the cartridge without retraining from scratch every time? Maybe incremental updates, maybe some hybrid approach. That's a key area for future work.
What about the self-study process itself? Could that be improved?
Potentially. Could we make the training faster with better low-level code, like optimized attention kernels for this shared prefix setup? Probably.
And the synthetic data generation. Could the self-quizzing be made even smarter?
That's a great question. Right now, they use curated seed prompts. Could the model learn to generate better questions for itself? Questions that probe deeper understanding or uncover more subtle connections, maybe some kind of meta-learning, that could lead to even more capable cartridges.
Lots of interesting avenues to explore, but the core vision seems clear.
Yeah, the vision is enabling these powerful, context-aware AI applications that are just too resource-intensive today. Think medical AI that instantly accesses a patient's entire history, or coding assistants that genuinely understand the whole repository, not just the current file.
It really bridges the gap between the potential of LLMs and the practicalities of deploying them with deep specialized knowledge. Okay, that wraps up our deep dive into cartridges and self-study. A really fascinating technical approach tackling those huge memory and throughput problems in long context LLMs.
It really is. By combining that clever synthetic data generation with context distillation, they've shown a potentially transformative way to give LLMs deep specialized knowledge much more efficiently.
It definitely leaves you thinking, what specific deep knowledge base would you, our listener, want your ideal LLM to have instantly available as a cartridge? What could that unlock for you?
Yeah, what's the killer app for this kind of efficient, specialized knowledge?
Food for thought. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. For more like this, remember to check out our webpage. Link is in the bio. We'll see you next time.